Posts on social media from the FBI Director Kash Patel talking about it, saying over the last 8 days, the FBI, Pima County, they've been working closely with our private sector partners to continue to recover any images or video footage from Nancy Guthrie's home that may have been lost, corrupted, or inaccessible due to a variety of factors, including the removal of recording devices. Also, potentially about the fact that she didn't have a subscription to that Nest camera. Let's be joined right now by retired police lieutenant, founder of the Wounded Blue, friend of the program, Randy Sutton. Randy, thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. And everyone is dissecting this piece of video of this possible abductor. Any distinct characteristics that you initially take away?
Well, this is a major break in this case. You know, we've seen kind of a decline of the leads over the last, this is day 10 now. And so we've seen a decline in the action here. But today, this was a major break. And this is thanks to the technology of the FBI. The fact that they were brought into this case and are so active is really a major component of this investigation. My only issue is that they weren't brought in a little sooner. But that being said, they were able to develop this incredible footage from an arena that they initially thought they weren't going to be able to get anything from. So through their abilities and their partnership with private companies, they were able to establish this. Now, this is critical stuff. There's so much evidence here that when this individual is caught, that will lead him right to the prison gates, if you will. And that is, you can what you see is a very distinct clothing. You see the fact that he's armed. It's a big deal. The fact that he is going into this crime armed is a major component when it comes down to sentencing. Now, it's interesting the way he's wearing his gun. It's very unusual. You know, first of all, it looks like a howdy doody holster, but it also looks like a real semi-automatic pistol. And then you look at his not only his appearance with the gloves. Those gloves are very telling. He was concerned about leaving any evidence behind, and this is a major breakthrough.
Yeah, major breakthrough, just to say the least. And you kind of got into some of those components that we're going to get into about his appearance, about what he's wearing, or maybe what he wasn't wearing. But let's go into this, because you said it took a long time, but she doesn't have a Nest subscription, so it really wasn't saved on any sort of cloud device. What type of legal processes do law enforcement, does the FBI have to go through? Because obviously they don't just give away this video readily to anybody. How do they go? Is it a search warrant? What other processes are out there?
Yeah, in fact, that's a great point, because we're talking about how come it took so long to get it. Well, there's process that has to be completed. They have to do search warrants. They have to serve them on the companies involved. The companies have a certain time period in which to address it, and all that takes time. This is deep technology. So I know that everyone is curious as to why did it take so long, but the unfortunate reality is that you have to do everything legally, because if you don't, and some of this evidence gets thrown out in court, then it's a waste of time. So that's why everything has to be done right by the book.
And let's go through some of this video, because you can kind of see what they do, what their appearance is, and what they look like. Does this individual look like they're familiar with this area? Because obviously it's a little bit of a wonky figure to go through with the foliage, the brush there as well. But do they look like they're familiar with this area? Is that any takeaway you can have?
That's a great question, because on one hand, he looks like he's very comfortable doing what he's doing, which is about to commit a major felony crime. He's not in any hurry. But if he had done a real serious recon, then he would have known that Ring doorbell camera was there, and he would have brought something, a piece of tape or something along those lines to block it. Instead, suddenly he has to go out into the foyer area and grab some plants, which I don't really understand. So I do believe that he was familiar with this victim, that he was familiar with this house, but I don't know when this is all said and done, it's going to be very interesting to see what his relationship was, because there will be some type of relationship.
Yeah, and obviously they kind of tried to obscure the identity of this one, and the Guthrie family saying they aren't aware, they don't recognize. But can you piece together, if someone is aware of this individual, could they put one and one together that they know who this is based on this? Is that something that police are trying to do right now?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that this could very well solve this case, because someone knows this man. Many people know this guy, and they probably are familiar with the way he dresses. That backpack is kind of unique, if you will. His gait, his size. I think that someone, if they know this individual pretty well, they're going to be able to see, at least suspect who he is. Now, here's where things get a little tricky. We always say, if you see something, say something. Whoever knows this person, um, on the possibility that it's him, they're going to be hesitant to call the police, because they don't want to get either him in trouble or themselves in trouble. So what I really urge, this is a terrible, terrible crime that has taken place. This woman has been missing for 10 days. Any delay could cost her life. So if you have information or even the possibility of information, don't hesitate. Call the FBI, call the local police.
Yeah, and obviously we have that number on the screen, the 1-800-CALL-FBI. Randy, I want to get into the gun because you mentioned the holster, and it's an unusual place for someone. If someone's familiar, handles a gun on a regular basis, that's an unusual spot to potentially have a weapon. Do you have any idea of what it could be or why someone would put it in that position particularly?
Well, one thing it has easy access because it's right out in front of you. But he's got these heavy gloves on too. I think that would cause a delay in being able to actually access the weapon and fire it. You have to get those gloves off because you can't stick your finger in the trigger there. But the fact that the gun does not fit the holster, and the holster itself, like I said, looks like something bought at a yard sale. So it's unusual. I think when this crime is solved, that's going to be one of the questions the investigators really look at.
All right, and obviously this is the first glimpse we're getting at surveillance video, and that is really potentially a key to a lot of different cases. The fact that they have this video, does that surmise that they may have other video, that they kind of crack the code on how to get this access if there's another person, a neighbor's kind of Nest or Ring doorbell, or a different camera? Do you think we'll get more surveillance, or they have more surveillance already?
I think there's a really strong possibility they have more, or they're going to get more. I actually think they already have more, but the accessing it and getting it sent to them, it probably takes some technological expertise to do it. But they will be looking at other avenues, such as neighbors, now that they've cracked the code, if you will, in how to get this type of footage.
Yeah, and obviously this person wearing gloves has that ski mask on top, but we also know they're looking for DNA samples. They potentially collected some from a landscaper, pool cleaners, other people that might have been in Nancy Guthrie's home prior that might be a little bit familiar. Even though this individual is wearing all of this, they're leaving behind traces of DNA, correct?
Not necessarily. There could be fibers and that type of thing, but when it comes down to DNA, while there is touch DNA, I don't know that with what he's wearing that would be accessible. However, he spent 42 or 43 minutes in the house, and that is the mystery now. What was he doing in that house for all that time? I shudder to think, quite honestly, and there could have been DNA transfer there.
And how curious are law enforcement about exactly what's in that backpack? Because carrying a weapon, obviously being the gloves, the mask as well. Well, what are they looking into in terms of the backpack? How crucial could that be?
Well, I think it's going to be crucial because, in my estimation, what he's got in there is the ability to restrain his victim. I think there could be restraints. There could be some type of rope, but something that would restrain the victim. And I think that the fact that backpack looked as full as it was would indicate that that's probably what was in there.
What other questions do you have, Randy, about this? Because we are getting a first glimpse. This may be the crack in the case that the law enforcement. What other questions do you hope to have? And obviously, Pima County, they haven't had a press conference since late last week. Do you think they have something to tell the public? Do you think they'll come out and speak to the public? And what question might you ask of them?
Well, that's a great question, because watching the performance of the sheriff of Pima County at the press conferences that he did was a little startling. And his kind of mumbling and bumbling, and then saying something and then walking it back, and he's received a tremendous amount of criticism, and quite honestly, I believe it is quite justified, not just from his performance at the press conference, but I'm getting a lot of information on the street here, and none of it's good when it comes down to the sheriff's leadership. And I believe that leadership always plays a role when it comes down to the competency of an agency. And it has been revealed that the original, when this call came in and they were treating it like a missing person, that the only real pilot of the plane that the department used for search and rescue had been disciplined by the sheriff and put back on this into an assignment where he couldn't fly the plane. And he's the only one that could fly the plane. And he offered to come back and do it, and he was told no. That's a lack of leadership at the highest degree. And then there's other avenues as well that I think reflect very poorly.
Yeah, and I want to ask you, because the FBI has gotten involved. We've seen Kash Patel in there. Is this something where the FBI can step in and take over if they feel there is a lack there of that leadership, or other ways to make sure this investigation is run properly, that they might have some answers, that this family might eventually bring their mother home?
Well, I think the FBI is playing a very significant role in this. Will they take over the prosecution? Is there a nexus to do that? They could probably find a nexus. Usually, this is a state crime, but it is a kidnapping, and if it doesn't cross state lines, then it's supposed to be a state crime. But there could be some extenuating circumstances. I think that should they want to take over completely and then federally prosecute it, they will find a way to do it.
Yeah, there's a lot of different components to this case, and you're on the ground there in Tucson. I want to ask you about this, because Pima County Sheriff also kind of really believed that they posted this saying, "We can't believe we have to say this to the media on the scene. Please do not order food delivery to the crime scene address. This interferes with an active investigation. Please also respect private property laws." As a potentially pizza was delivered to this home, a viewer of a reporter on the ground had it delivered. Does that speak to just some of the holes in this case and this investigation as well?
Well, why wasn't that entire property roped off? I mean, come on. It's just another aspect here that makes one lose a little confidence in the abilities here.
Yeah, very good. Randy, my last question before I let you go, because we do know there's that supposed ransom note and the deadlines have passed. How does that change the complexion for law enforcement when they're working with someone that is potentially trying to communicate, or potentially, if you kind of assume the fact that this is involved in this, how does that change the complexion once we're after the deadline?
Well, the deadline has passed. There was no real meaningful, from what I'm understanding, no real meaningful communication. I believe that this whole kidnapping or this whole ransom demand was a red herring, if you will, something to distract law enforcement from doing the investigative actions that are required for a much greater crime. I think that this ransom demand was a hoax. But I'll tell you this, whoever did it, they need to go to prison for the rest of their lives too. The cruelty that they inflicted on this family is despicable. And should they find them, I think they need to be under the prison.
Yeah, and you saw from the video released by Savannah Guthrie yesterday just how emotionally exhausted she is from this whole process. She's still holding out hope that her mother is out there and that she has returned safely. Randy, thank you so much for your time here on Live Now from Fox. I appreciate your insight, as always.
Thanks for having me.
All right, thank you so much. All right, great conversation.